Hello, my name is Mitch Miller. I'm a psychotherapist in southeastern Wisconsin area, and I'm making YouTube videos about topics related to psychotherapy, spirituality, especially Christian and Catholic spirituality. Looking back, I made a few videos already, and I realized I had not yet made a video about myself, about my background, and who I am, and why I'm here. So I'm going to try and talk about that presently. Okay, so how did I get here? Who am I? Why am I in business? And why am I making videos on YouTube? Okay, so as I mentioned, maybe I didn't mention it, but as I mentioned in at least some of my videos, my name is Mitch Miller, and I am running a private practice in southeastern Wisconsin for psychotherapy and counseling. I focus mostly on addiction and compulsive behaviors and things of that nature. If you're more interested in my areas of specialty and stuff like that, you can take a look at my website or my other videos. But how did I get here? I did not originally intend to be a psychotherapist. It was not something I planned to do. It was by accident. Originally wanted to be a musician. In high school, I had aspired to be a career musician, and I put a lot of work into it, practiced long hours just about every single day, and I got to be pretty good at it. I went on to do some pretty cool things with music, playing with some very talented people. I went to music school after high school. I went to music school at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, and then at the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis. I learned a lot, but while I was at music school, I had an injury. I was a trumpet player, and I blew out my soft palate, which is a really uncommon thing. If you don't know what a soft palate is, put your tongue at the top of your mouth, like here, and it should be hard, right behind your teeth. And then move your tongue backwards until it gets soft. That's your soft palate. I blew that out through a variety of just strange circumstances. If there's any musicians watching this video by chance and you want to know more about how that works, I'd be happy to answer your questions. It's really uncommon, but it's not non-existent. But yeah, I blew out that soft palate, and I had to choose a different line of work because I could no longer plan on being a professional musician. I can play again now, and my soft palate works just fine now, but I'll never be able to play at the level I used to. So what happened is, after that injury, I had to choose another line of work. I chose to minor in anthropology, which was, I don't know if it was the right choice or if it was a mistake. It doesn't necessarily pay the bills by itself, but I learned a lot studying anthropology at the University of Minnesota. Part of my studies got me in touch with some organizations where I was doing volunteer work. I volunteered at some places where I worked with people with criminal backgrounds and with addictions. And my job with them was to help them find work, help them put together resumes, help them fill out job applications, and plan basically how to function in the world. I found I really enjoyed that, and I was pretty good at it. And I got recommended for some other jobs that actually paid decent money. And I started working at correctional halfway houses, working with men coming out of state and federal prison who had committed all kinds of crimes. People who had been, I think the longest I had seen, it was a guy who was in prison for 41 years. It was really interesting because there were people who would come out of prison and they would come to Minneapolis, and they didn't recognize the city, and it had been so long since they'd been in the city that they actually be taken on like taxi rides through town and have the Fauché Tower pointed out to them, because when they went to prison, that was the tallest building they knew in the city. And now, there's tons of tall buildings in Minneapolis, and they can't even see. You have to really look for the Fauché Tower to even know where it is. So that was interesting. People who had to get out and be taught internet because they didn't even know what internet was. So I worked with them, and I also did something called Thinking for a Change, which is based in cognitive behavioral therapy. And what that is I work with these guys, these men coming out of prison who might be gangbangers, bank robbers, drug dealers. They might be rapists. They might be sexual abusers of any kind, all kinds of stuff. And I would run them through these interventions, these strategies with cognitive behavioral therapy. And you could see a lot of them weren't super affected by it, but I'd say maybe 30%, 30 to 40%, you could see there was a significant change in the way they were thinking. And you'd see guys who would try to solve every problem with violence. For instance, someone who had like a severe anger problem or always thought about stealing. No matter what the problem was, the answer was stealing or the answer was violence. And after the cognitive behavioral therapy, they realized that there were other ways of dealing with things other than violence or stealing or drugs or whatever, trying to get what they wanted immediately, the quick way by illegal means. And that was really cool to be able to see people who otherwise would have been hopeless, be given something that maybe gave them a chance of staying outside of prison rather than going back. That was really cool. So while I was doing that, I did that for a few years, and then I decided to go back to school and get my license because I enjoyed doing it so much. I went to the University of Minnesota and did the program in what's called integrated behavioral health, and I got dually licensed in mental health and addiction counseling. I had held several internships, internship at a detox. I had an internship at a organization that works with the HIV community, internship at a chemical dependency treatment center. After I finished my master's degree, I went on to work at an outpatient clinic that works with sex offenders. And I worked there for about 3 years. That was a very formative experience for me. I learned a lot there, and that's why one of the reasons why to this day sexuality is one of my areas of expertise and one of the areas where I see there's a huge need to be filled. There's not a lot of people who have a lot of expertise in sexuality, and there's a lot of people who think they have a lot of expertise in sexuality, but actually don't really know what they're talking about. So that was a huge part of my experience in my life. Honestly, that was a very rewarding experience. A lot of people just would ask, how do you work with people who are sex offenders? And I could make a whole series of videos about my experiences at working with sex offenders. And it's the best job that I ever had. I feel like I made a bigger difference there, was more rewarded there for my work than pretty much any other job that I've ever had. And I'll make more videos about that in the future if anyone wants to see them. I also worked for about 1.5 years at a hospital with adolescents. It was a dual diagnosis unit, so kids who were attempting suicide or trying to run away, and they had pretty bad drug use and pretty bad mental health problems. And so I worked there for a while as well. And then now in southeastern Wisconsin, I work at a government agency, and I also am moonlighting here on YouTube and running my private practice. I also have a master's degree in Catholic theology, which I got from the University of St. Thomas. My thesis area, which I have recently finished, thank God, is on topics related to spirituality and mental health, integrating cognitive behavioral theory with the Catholic views of the passions, particularly the 7 deadly sins, or what the Eastern Church would call the 8 logoismoi. If you guys are interested in that, I can make videos about that as well. And then, so here I am working in private practice, and I'm hoping to make a difference and fill a need where there's not a lot of Catholic therapists who have, there's not a lot of therapists who are Catholic to begin with, and there's not a lot of therapists who understand the way spirituality works, at least not in the Christian or Catholic milieu. So that's who I am. That's why I'm here. If you guys watched this whole video, thank you. I'm surprised. You guys have a lot of stamina. And if you have any questions or anything like that, or you want to get in touch with me, my information is below. or you can go to www.millercounselingllc.com. That's MUELLER counselingllc.com, and you can find my contact information there. Thank you all. God bless, and we'll see you in our next video.